Part 4. The Road to Washington. The winter of 1864 was merciless. By the time James and Eleanor left Liberty Hill, the snow lay thick upon the old Cumberland Road, turning wagon wheels into anchors and every breath into mist. Yet the pair pressed onward, driven by something far stronger than comfort, a sense of duty, and the quiet hope that Samuel's letter would finally reach the capital it was meant for. The war had left the roads desolate. Abandoned inns stood like hollow teeth along the way, their windows shattered, signs swinging in the wind. Occasionally, a lone rider would pass, wrapped in a soldier's coat, eyes darting like hunted prey. James carried the letter close to his chest, sealed in a tin case beneath his vest. Eleanor, though wrapped in 2 shawls, still trembled from the cold, but she never once complained. Each evening, when they camped by the roadside or under the half-burned roof of an old stable, James would light a small fire and speak softly of the lands he had once surveyed. "Virginia," he'd say, poking the embers with a stick, "isn't just the battlefield. Beneath these hills lies the old heart of America, the one we keep trying to remember, but always seem to lose." Eleanor would listen quietly, her hands around a tin cup of coffee gone cold. "Do you ever think that maybe Samuel didn't mean for this letter to reach Washington at all? Maybe he wanted it to stay buried, a secret between the dead and the forgotten?" James looked at her through the firelight. "Maybe, but if that letter holds what I think it does, it could change how this country rebuilds itself. It could give meaning to all the loss." She lowered her gaze. "And if it destroys what's left instead?" He had no answer, only the crackle of fire and the distant cry of an owl. They reached Harper's Ferry after 2 weeks, a town half in ruin, half in resurrection. The bridge across the Potomac had been rebuilt in haste, its timbers raw and uneven, yet men still marched across it, heading north or south, unsure of which direction meant home anymore. James led their horse through the narrow streets. Once, Harper's Ferry had been a town of industry and promise. Now, it was a ghost of ideals gone to war. Yet, amid the rubble, a sign caught Eleanor's eye. "Ashford & Co., Surveyors, established 1847.
She froze. "James, that's your family, isn't it?" He nodded slowly. The sign hung crooked over a boarded-up storefront. He dismounted, brushed away the snow, and stared at the faded letters as if reading an old wound. "My father built this place," he said, "before he died in Kansas. We used to come here every summer, mapping the riverbanks. He believed America could be drawn like a promise, line by line, with hope." Eleanor placed a gloved hand on his shoulder. "And what do you believe now?" He turned, meeting her gaze with quiet sorrow. "I believe hope needs proof." That night, they stayed in the old survey office. Dust hung in the air, and maps still lined the walls, yellowed and curling, but intact. One of them caught James's attention, a sketch of the Virginia hills marked with faint ink trails and coordinates. In the bottom corner was a name, S. Whitfield. He felt his pulse quicken. "Eleanor, look at this." She came closer. The handwriting was unmistakable. "Samuel, he worked with your father?" "It appears so," James said, running his finger along the inked line that curved toward the Appalachian foothills. "And this marking, see it? That's the same symbol as the one on the letter seal." A realization struck them both. The letter wasn't just a message, it was a map. At dawn, they departed Harper's Ferry with renewed urgency. The road to Washington lay ahead, but so did a trail of questions and the shadow of men who would kill to keep those answers hidden. By the 3rd day, they noticed signs of being followed, hoof prints in the snow behind them, a flicker of movement on a ridge. Eleanor's nerves began to fray. James, if we're discovered, we won't be, he said, though his hand never strayed far from the pistol on his belt. That night, as they camped near an abandoned tavern, they finally met the danger head-on. Two riders appeared out of the dark, men in Union coats, but their insignia scratched away. One called out, "James Ashford, by order of the War Department, you're to surrender all materials related to the Whitfield letter." Eleanor froze. How do they know? "They know everything," James muttered. Then louder, "Show me your orders." The man dismounted, holding a paper, but before he could hand it over, the second rider raised his revolver. A shot rang out, splintering the tavern sign. James grabbed Eleanor and dove behind a trough. Gunfire erupted, flashes in the night echoing through the empty hills. The letter's tin case pressed cold against James's chest as he fired back. One rider fell, the other fled, vanishing into the trees. When the silence returned, Eleanor sat trembling beside him. "You could have been killed." He looked down at her, breath steaming in the cold air. "So could you." Her eyes met his, fierce, tear-bright, alive. "Then let's make sure it was for something that matters." They buried the fallen rider beneath a sycamore tree and took his coat for warmth. Inside the man's pocket, James found a fragment of an official telegram. Intercept before delivery, contents tied to reconstruction plans, payment guaranteed upon retrieval. Eleanor stared at the words. This isn't just about Samuel's letter, it's political. James nodded grimly and deadly. As they neared the outskirts of Washington, the first signs of spring began to break through. Thought streams, birds returning to the trees, the faint hum of rebuilding after ruin. But the city ahead was not the Washington they remembered. It was a city divided between victory and grief, power and conscience. And somewhere within its marble corridors waited the truth of Samuel Whitfield's final message, a truth powerful enough to reshape a nation or tear it apart. To be continued. Part 5, The Secrets Beneath the Capitol.